Hello, John. Thank you for coming back to the show here. We're on part 34. Um, so a lot has transpired since we last talked 2 weeks ago. We have a new pope. There's conflict with Pakistan and India. You're going to be going over other topics too. We are doing a live stream on YouTube, live stream on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Also simulcasting on X Spaces. We're going to be taking questions either through text messaging or asking for the mic on X Spaces. You'll be able for the audience to ask questions. So before we begin, John, I just want to remind the audience that in the description box, there is a link to your website that will allow individuals to sign up for a periodical and also to do a reading. We'll talk about that later within the broadcast here, but thank you again for coming onto the channel, John, and let's begin wherever you want to start.
Well, thanks for having me, Paul. I noticed there were a lot of new people subscribing to my free newsletter list, probably because they're already anticipating this show via you and the DrPaulCottrell show. And yes, yes, we had a pope die. And then in the last 2 weeks, a pope died, replaced by a new pope, Leo the 14th. And also there was a massacre in Pahalgam, a place where Jesus may have walked in Kashmir. My Hogue prophecy report that I hoped was only going to be 3, now it's 9 articles, but there's just so much going on. I hope to have it out in about 3 or 4 more days. But it will definitely contain a lot of the things that are going on now, and also historical and prophetic context. For instance, I start the whole story of Pahalgam. I found a beautiful picture of this very beautiful meadow in the Kashmir mountains of India and disputed land of Kashmir. Pakistan is a part of it. India and China all have parts of it. This is the Indian part, not far from Srinagar. And you can see people playing on the same grass that nearly 2,000 years ago, or more actually. These are the descendants, grass seeds, of the grass seeds that Jesus with his flocks of sheep might have walked upon. They knew him as Esa. In fact, um, it's not just Josephus who talked about Jesus. It's not just the Talmud that most biblical New Testament scholars wish to avoid, because the Talmud speaks a lot about Esa, but all in very negative terms, because the Sanhedrin were Talmudic, I think, in that regards. And of course, they were not very happy with him. But it's worth reading, and it's worth exposing the fact that most Christian scholars don't want you to read what the Talmudic Jews had to say about Jesus. So, but a strong man can take criticism, or woman, and grow from it. It either is projecting their biases or exposing certain things that the story of Jesus doesn't want you to confront. So, but you'll have to decide on your own which of those are true or false. Now, so I start with the story of Esa. And Esa is the name that the Talmud calls Jesus. And it also, in lamaseries, Tibetan lamaseries in Ladakh, and near neighboring Srinagar and Kashmir, and also lamaseries in Tibet, have recorded for thousands of years every monk or traveler that has come in and out of these ancient monastery lamaseries in Tibetan. And they record Esa. They record where he came from, too, from the far west, from Western Asia, Judea. And, you know, we have those years, lost years in the Bible where we see Jesus just beginning to talk as a boy or young teen to scholars, Hebrew scholars. And then we don't hear from him again until it's AD 30, you know, and he is now a grown man at 33. And where did he go? Well, you will find records of him going east, going kind of doing a spiritual Marco Polo experience on the Silk Road, going to find truth. And you can also see it if you know Buddhist scriptures. You will also see that some of the things that are the most revolutionary and beautiful that Jesus says in his ministry are verbatim out of the Dhammapada, Buddha's teachings. I'll just use one example. Everybody knows this, the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That wasn't originally from Jesus. It was something Jesus learned as Esa in Tibet. It's actually Buddha's statement, the golden rule. And there are other Buddhistic things that Jesus said, and he brought that teaching back into and tried to reconcile it with the eschatological traditions of Judaism. You know, the three main Western religions all are sourced from the mother religion of Judaism. The That's where the outshooting of the Christian faith and also Islam, because as a camel herder, Muhammad used to often camp with Nestorian Christians, more Eastern-leaning Orthodox Christians. And so his knowledge of the Bible was from them before he had his moment with Jabril, who we call Gabriel, on the mountain, Mount Hira in Saudi Arabia. In my newest Hogue Prophecy report yet to be published, I have some very beautiful paintings from Nicholas Roerich, the Russian explorer and also spiritual wanderer in Tibet and other places, who paints all these marvelous paintings. But the one I'm starting with is his painting of Saint Michael in the flames. For he, like so many other thinkers and spiritual people and sensitives, artists, he painted that just before World War I started. And he was painting a number of, from 1912 to 1914, he was painting a lot of very apocalyptic themes because he felt it coming, the great Holocaust of the First World War, which was a war that never anyone had seen in its ferocity, in its modern high industrial slaughter. It just, in some ways, psychically speaking, because no one ever had a context, the First World War, in many ways, psychically was the most terrible. It was because even though World War II was even more modern 20 years later and more violent, people were used to that darkness by then, that variation on a theme. But people were very innocent, from the leaders to the led, to the horrors of modern warfare. They'd had warnings. Many European watchers were on both sides of the American Civil War, taking note of how, because that had a lot of aspects of being a first modern war. It even had trench warfare. At Petersburg and Richmond towards the end of the war. It had the problems of that they didn't listen to the problems that they had in the Austro-Hungarian, the Prusso-Hungarian War in the 1860s, and then there was the Franco-Prussian War that really was indicating just how things had to change in your tactics because the weapons were the tactics were where everybody's shoulder to shoulder running in an open field. Well, the Prussian Guard in 20 minutes lost 9,000 casualties against the French Chassepot guns. But there then was no war for 40 years. which is rare for Europe. No war in Europe. So whole generations were born that with much more advanced Maxim machine guns and howitzers that could fire 30 rounds rather than 4 cannonballs a minute, 30 rounds, rapid fire, high explosives, planes, tanks, all these things that we take for granted were an unknown until the terrible days of 1914. So Rurik saw this. And in a way, we are constantly coming closer and closer to taking a deeper plunge into horrors. I just heard today, I'm trying to confirm it, but this war that erupted between India and Pakistan, there's apparently this ceasefire that happened. It's not really happening. The fighting is still going on. But the ceasefire that was rushed in suddenly, which had everybody stop, it may be because there's been a leak of nuclear radiation near Rawalpindi, in one of the, I think it's called Khan something. I can find out the exact name, but I have it up here. Yes. Yeah, the U.S. National Nuclear Safety Administration sent one of its large transports because it got a nuclear emergency report from India and Pakistan. So they sent one of their large B-350 AMS aircraft into Pakistan, into that place near the Karana Hills, to look at a nuclear storage facility that might have been hit by Indian Air Force airstrikes, and they are detecting radiation. So it could be one of the stockpiles that has packed in it the 170 nuclear missiles with their nuclear tipped warheads might have been struck by a conventional attack, and they are recording radiological release. So it's not a bomb attack, but atomic weapons that were stored that were attacked. And so, we're not facing the Maxim machine guns and French howitzers that can fire 30 rounds a second rather than 4. We're just about to enter a situation where in one day, Southern Asia could go up in nuclear fire of the firing of 350 nuclear weapons. And because there's 180 India has and 170 that the Pakistanis have. And if that happens, it'll change the world. Everybody will be impacted, not as badly as a nuclear war could be if it was the 2 largest superpowers unleashing their thousands of nuclear weapons. In a strange way, and I've been saying this since 1990, and I go in these articles, I talk about my journey from 1990 to the present, looking at this area, which I personally lived in for much of my adult life, India and Pakistan. And I actually recount some of the times when I was there when it looked like they were going to do their mini version of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And wasn't clear whether, I lived in Pune. Pune is near the Southern Command. Southern Command would definitely be a target of Pakistani nuclear weapons. And our ashram was near there. But as I was saying before, I think I said it on this show. It's hard to remember what I've said. So many things were coming in when. But we were fortunate in these things, as we are hopefully fortunate now. Weather could play a really good factor in this war, this war being drenched not by radiation, but by monsoonal rains in another month or so. And when that happened in the Great Standoff of 2002, which was caused by the terrorists were running wild, not just with 911, but 4 months after that, the Lok Sabha, the Parliament of India, was attacked by terrorists. They tried to slaughter the entire parliament. They didn't get into the main hall, but a dozen guards were killed and wounded, and the terrorists were killed. And these people were from um, a this is a real problem Pakistan has to face, is that they have aided and abetted terrorism in India. And I know, I saw it. I looked at the reports. There's been always Lashkar-e-Taiba and other Mohammed-e-Taiba. They have camps. Pakistanis support them, and they murdered thousands of Indians. And India, this happened again with the Pahalgam attack. 5 terrorists came in. They were probably already in country and as guerrillas fighting the Indian forces that are inside occupied Kashmir. They would call it occupied. See, Kashmir originally was because Nehru was the prime minister of India when the partition happened. He's a Brahmin Hindu, part of members of the Kashmiri minority. He he uh, uh, he wanted to keep the majority strategic Kashmir as a part of India, but it's a majority Muslim population. So the dispute was Pakistan said, no, this is, there's many more Muslims than Hindus here. And so that dispute started, and that triggered the first of so far 3 major wars and dozens of smaller kerfuffles, hopefully like this one does not become really a full-scale war. But this one's trying really hard. And there's all kinds of confusion going on. I mean, it seems like mainly the war has started off as India made a strike, and they went not only into Kashmir and hit a total of 9 camps and terrorist centers and stuff that the Pakistanis look the other way and allow. And they also hit, this time they also hit inside Pakistan proper, not just Kashmir. And they cut off the 1960 treaty where most of Pakistan's water, it comes from the headwaters of reservoirs in India and in Kashmir. Modi, the Prime Minister of India, cut them off. And then he let a few weeks go by where a number of the major rivers dried out. And they've just turned it back on again. But it was just like telling them, he says, look, so this is quite a daring move, because it literally is a situation. Let's say Canada had the headwaters of the Mississippi River and we got in a kerfuffle with them. What if they, just to punish us, cut off the headwaters of the reservoirs and the Mississippi dried up? We'd go to war with them. We'd take it back. We'd take Canada. Because it's just like what happened to what the Egyptians feared. Here are the Egyptians adding 1 million new people into this thin sliver of green lusciousness surrounded by absolutely dead desert. And they're building, their population is exploding 1 million a year. I don't know how they sustain it. It's getting very hard, but the headwaters up in Ethiopia, I don't know if that's the blue or the white Nile. I always get them mixed up. But it's one of the 2 major Niles that flow into the main Nile River. And they are now wanting to use some of that water for their own people. So this has been 20, 30 years of this, where the Egyptians say, if you open those dams and start cutting off the water, we'll have to bomb those dams, take them out, because you'd literally be cutting off water to 90 million people. And so you've got a situation in Pakistan where they're cutting off the water to several 100 million people. And then you're facing an enemy of 1.4 billion Indians. So the situation is backing Pakistan into a wall. It's not that stable a country politically. I mean, the real prime minister had been incarcerated with lawfare, Imran Khan, and there's a lot of people in Pakistan that aren't happy about that. And the military juntas, he tried to kind of break the junta's control on all the wealth and situation in Pakistan. And it's not working. They arrested him. Now they've got another prime minister in there. And then the defense minister, when this all started, made kind of a lame variation of a theme that Putin had said about Russia. But he was saying that, well, if Pakistan goes down, why should the rest of the world not go down with us? It's a bit. Putin made it more a statement. Well, if we as Russians don't exist in this world, if you destroy us, I mean, with nuclear weapons, um, how can you survive either? You know, how can you, then if you're out to wipe us out, then we can't live in a world that doesn't allow us to exist in it. And of course, if the missiles are flying from America, the Russians will launch. And so that hopefully is a deterrent. Now, India doesn't have those, and Pakistan don't have those deterrents. So if you back Pakistanis up against the water wall, and that was probably too harsh of Modi. But Modi's BJP party, but he's not the BJP guy who was running it when it happened during the Great Standoff. Vapaji, I think was his name. He did not surrender the command of the armed forces gladly to the generals. He kept them, and in doing so, prevented them from using atomic weapons in 2002. Fortunately, the thing came to a peak in May, the hottest part of the hot season, just like it's doing now. And there was an attack. The Pakistanis took a base on the border in Kashmir of Indians, and it was a big battle, and that almost triggered the war. But fortunately, the monsoons came. Everybody had to sit for 3 months. They cooled off in the rains. I love the monsoon for that. It's really a time where you just chill out, and it's raining all the time, thunderstorms and everything. And then when October came, where the anger had gone, and so I probably told a little of this last time, but this we're still in that hopeful pattern. But um, I, South Asian news has really gotten crazy, crazier than when I was there. It's just all this flash and movement and this and that and broadcasting the same footage, thinking and if you're not watching, you're thinking it's like, oh, it's constant missile fire and stuff going on. And I can't really tell if this thing is really escalating as much as they're all going, yes, it is. It is. It's doing it very bad. Everything's, oh, we're going to wipe them out. And it's just nuts. And I'm confronting a real information chaos right now. That is, I have to kind of feel my instincts more. And my instincts have been, there's more sound and fury signifying nothing really happening here than what they're promoting for ratings, both sides. Both sides are really bad at it. And then you get CNN's guy, and he's far, far away. It's just like the guy that was on the hotel in Kiev telling you what was happening at the beginning of the Russo-Ukrainian war. I mean, all he was like 30 miles away from the action, and he's just kind of making it up or hearsay. You don't have like what happened with one of my best sources, an American who lives, has a wife and children in the Donbass, Patrick Lancaster, a must see. You gotta check him out. He has been following this war since it was a civil war in 2014. And he's actually he's trying to get into India or Pakistan so he can try to find out what's going on there. Because he sometimes goes to other war zones like Armenia and Baku and all that area. So anyway, so now we've had this new development. So one of my articles, Article 3, is just where I just put a report for each day I'm writing this and give a paragraph of what's happening. Today's report is about the nuclear radiation problem. So what I'm hopeful, and I think it will happen this way. My prophetic sense, hopefully, it's usually 80%, but that means it could be 20% there that's wrong. My sense is that there's a lot of posturing and shooting and making noise, and there's been damage on both sides, and there's been a number of jets destroyed on the ground by the Indians, and a number of jets been shot out of the sky by the Pakistanis. A whole lot of drone terror attacks from either side, day and night. But my feeling is it's just going to settle down. That may still be threatening and shouting until the monsoon comes, and then 3 months will go by, and then it'll be all over. But if it is not, then I'm going to try in the unimaginable that could happen. I'm going to take a step beyond that to a bigger prophetic future that could, in the end, if such a terrible thing were to happen, and I don't want it to happen, who would? Who would want anything like this to happen? And I've lived there. This is the cradle of all, some of the, India is haunted with the presence of enlightened beings. Um, to see it destroyed, the ashram of my master destroyed, all of that would be terrible. So I don't want it to happen personally. But if it happens, and I've been writing about this possibility since 1990, when I first started writing about such things, when I was still in India in 1990. A regional, I call it a nuclear bush war, in the chapter for the Millennium Book of Prophecy, one of my breakout coffee table books. I first did, well, let's see. You see this one, oops, if I can do it, this one right here in the distance, that's the Millennium Book of Prophecy. People used to call it an explosion in the print shop because its design is prophetic. It actually redefined all the things that we now take for granted, like a screen where you have to read like this. People were telling us you can't do that. People's eyes won't be able to do that. We did it. And now it's like, so the book's literally, the design of this book is a work of prophecy that was 100% fulfilled in all the ways we did stuff. We just broke all the rules of design. And so I was telling you, I think the other week, the earlier one, which was this one right here, the Nostradamus and the Millennium. That's my other really beautiful coffee table book. This blue one that you can hardly see in the distance there, though, is Messiah's, and I think that's my best coffee table book. So I used to do coffee table books. They're very much more work than just writing, but and since then I haven't done any. So, but the thing is, in the Millennium Book of Prophecy, my second book, second of 53 so far, I said, well, if the South Asian area was destroyed and 1 billion people were killed in the radiation and blast effects of 350 nuclear weapons being let off, the whole rest of the world would be watching in the miniature what would happen to it if the big nuclear war happened. And we'd even get a little taste of nuclear winter, what I call nuclear autumn, where the best we could hope for is the 2026 will be called the year that there was no summer in the northern hemisphere. And if we're lucky, the famines that will be caused by it will only kill another 1 billion people. Mostly in where the main radiation clouds will be flowing, which will be around latitude 16, latitude 20 to latitude 6 of the subtropical, tropical area, where the ash of all those cities would just be moving basically around the earth for a while there until the fallout was rained out. The way India is set up, it's not the place you have no advantage weather-wise if you're Pakistan or India, because everything kind of flows around there. So all the bombs you launch on Pakistan will also irradiate you, India, and as much as it irradiates Pakistan. So it's a kind of madness that if it happens there. And also, it's another intriguing thing that in this great age that's changing of thousands of years, it seems like the places that have been cradles of civilization are now either under threat or could very well go up in flames. Like India is one of those cradles. China is being threatened by the United States. It's one of the even oldest. The Middle East, Egypt, and all the biblical areas is the other cradle. It seems like the cradles of all the epochal times that we've had up to this time for the last 7,000 or so years are kind of, they're wombs that are going to be destroyed in this new period, this creation of the fifth world, as the Hopi prophecies call it. They've seen four worlds that have been destroyed. Interestingly enough, the fourth world, the third world was destroyed, and the fourth world rose from its ashes, rose from its waters, from floods. So just like in the Bible, the Hopis also have a flood story. In fact, everybody has a flood story in their ancient most scriptures. And that's probably got a rational explanation that shows that civilizations have been around a lot earlier than we think. And at 10,000 BC was when there was a sudden meltdown of the Ice Age. That at that time, the sea levels were down at 345 feet below the current sea level that we have now. So there were a lot of areas that were probably thriving with cities. There seems to be some ruins off the shore of India, and it's in two places. The city was rebuilt and around 145 feet below. So there seems to have been two floods of extra water as the Ice Age was beginning to end, and they match those two coastlines. So geologically speaking, so now archaeology is like religion. It hates its dogma to be questioned. Like we're only supposed to have cities around 500 BC being the first cities. They may be off by 10,000 years. So but they don't want to deal with it. I mean, there's literally evidentiary stuff down there. I've seen the footage of it. People have gone down there. There's another place in a paddock-like structure that's carved out of solid stone that's like a warship spot, and it's just off the southern tip of India. So, and these things were found by accident. They were found by people exploring the continental shelves to see if there was oil. And so they did radars, and then the radar came up with a grid of a city, with a lot of squared off buildings, not very sophisticated, but a city, civilization. And so these, so the cradles of our religions, of our societies are kind of, that doesn't mean they'll all go up. Maybe none of them will go up. I hope not. But they're definitely threatened. But what could happen from this terrible tragedy if the Indian-Pakistani war goes nuclear is what it would do to us as a lesson to take these bombs and stop them, erase all nuclear weapons. I think that's what would happen, because we'd see what just a little corner of planet Earth and how that little corner would impact our whole climate, our food growing, all of that. That it wouldn't be a theory anymore. It's like when you're a woman and you're growing up, you've never had a child, you've seen it, you've seen what people go through, but it's only when you are bearing down on the kid and all that you're really having the experience. It's probably not a good analogy because about birth, this is about death. But it could very well shake us out of our stupor and end nuclear weapons. And then, unfortunately, we will then have to make sure that we do not replace them with bombs that are just as powerful. The only good news is they're not radioactive, because they are missiles that move at Mach 20, and they're kinetic weapons with a heavy metal tungsten warhead. Going at Mach 20, you could cause a fireball over New York and wipe it out just from contact, from kinetic contact. Good news, a little bit of an improvement. There's no radioactivity. And that's big, because that lasts a long time and pollutes. But so hopefully that, I'm always trying to stay ahead. I mean, some of my prophecies actually, you're soon going to read them in the next few years in my book of things to come. Some of them go all the way 4,000 years from now. Um, there will be that predilection to use the cleaner and a clean kinetic war, which would still cause the flames, wouldn't be radioactive. It could still cause the cities all to burn, and it could still cause nuclear winters, but they wouldn't be nuclear. It's not much of an improvement, but that at least in the long steps of our growing out of our childishness are things that I write about. But hopefully, I'm hopeful that if this thing goes, um, if it does happen, I don't think it will, but who am I to say? If it does happen, let us learn from this and never do it again. So, has there been any questions?
No questions yet.
Okay.
Oh, you have a decent following right now. So
I have a what?
you have a decent following right now.
Oh, good.
All right. So anyone that's either watching on YouTube, you can type in your questions if you'd like to ask a question, or you can ask for the mic on X Spaces, and I'll pass the mic on to you, and you can ask your question live.
Yeah. So, Paul will give me a wave when I know somebody's up. So, I'll keep talking because we'll talk a little bit about the new Pope. That also happened, and the death of Francis was followed by Pope Leo the 14th. I'm just trying to get my head around his destiny. Last time I spent an hour in the last show 2 weeks ago talking about the possibilities of what comes next. I think I made some predictions about what possible popes might have been there. I recall that what I said then was I thought that Tegle or Parolin were most likely to be the next pope. I also predicted that it would be just four ballots in 2 days. It would be quick. I got that one right, but after I signed off on that show in the next few days, I saw how certain things came up about Parolin and his dealings with China, and also because it's a is a wonderful line that the Vatican has that during a conclave, you can walk in a pope and come out a cardinal. I love that. If he's going, it's Tagle. He's gonna, he's the guy that Francis has designated as his successor. Rumor mill goes, and um, actually, he had a gambling problem that came up. So, if I had done a show the following week, I would say, well, and I must say, I didn't jump on it, but every once in a while they would talk about Robert, what's his name? Prevost, Robert Francis Prevost. I'm probably butchering his name. I'm still getting my head around it. Let's see, where is he? Um, Here we go. He is Francis, so one could call him the second Francis, as some people joke. Um, where is he? There we go. Yes, Robert Francis Prevost. Yes, that was his Christian name, and interesting that he picked um, his name after he's the only other Augustine monk, Order of the Augustine monks. He actually was head of the Order of Augustine monks from 2001 to 2000. He was 2 6 year terms, 12 years. Um, I was just looking at his astrology. He's a Virgo. Um, oh, that's Trump. Wrong stars. Okay. Oh, I know where he is. I have a lot of things up. Let's see. Ah, here he is. Yes, he is. Main issues he's going to have. I mean, for one thing, it looks like a real solid pope, whether you like him or not. He's got a presence. He's a Leontine pope. So, Leo stands for king. It's symbolized by the golden crown. So I have to agree with a number of, I was watching a Vedic astrologer, Hogarth, I think is his name. Um, he uh, he saw him. He's got that situation in his chart where almost all of his planets are on the right side, descending on the chart. We don't know his rising sign. Some people theorize that he was a Leo rising. Others theorize that he's a Scorpio. Um, I'm still figuring that one out. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing in these articles are preliminary points and insights that I have that because of course now, if anybody's read a lot of my books, you know that I wrote a best-selling book, The Last Pope, The Decline and Fall of the Church of Rome in 1998. And of course, I haven't updated it since John Paul II. So I did do a small book where I talked a little about Benedict, and in another small book, I talked about Francis and the Last Pope Prophecies. It's one of my best-selling papal books, and just trying to explain the whole situation with Francis and all the interesting stuff with 13s that were happening. There was also the seagulls love to hang out on the Sistine Chapel next to the pipe where the black or the white smoke comes out. And there is actually an omen that happened. This will be two in a row. Because what happened back in March of 2013 is that there was a seagull that got up on the tin hat like a Oriental rice picker shaped hat, like Vietnam hat or something. It's made of iron. And he liked it's pretty flat, so he can perch on it. It's not like this. He perched on there and stayed there for over an hour. Didn't move. He was just there. And it got to a point where it had happened just after the fourth black smoke. So they had one evening one to do. And so he was there. And 13 minutes when it got dark, he flew off at 8 o'clock, 8:13. He stayed there until 8:13 and he flew off. And then 13 minutes, sorry, at 8 o'clock, he flew off. And then 13 minutes later, the white smoke came out. So another 13, 2013. It was all these 13s happening. Now, that can either give you a triskaidekaphobia event, fear of 13s, Friday the 13th, all that. Or, you see what happens. So anyway, some people might look at that as, understandably, might look at that as a sign of the schism coming in prophecy, the crisis in the Catholic Church of apostasy, that and I would say, as I was saying last week, that Benedict XVI did a lot to start that, and there's a lot of prophecies, Benedictine prophecies and all, that there would be a Benedict that would start. They thought it would be a Benedictine, but they got that wrong, but it was a Benedict who really was into the Saint Benedict's way of doing things. He considered himself the reformer, that he was going to be the reformer, the strong, courageous, won't let you get away with anything reformer, because they were having problems with Arian Christianity and other forms of Christianity that were seeing Jesus as a mortal man, not son of God. So, and there was a lot of that going on at that time, around 500 BC, when Benedict created this first major order of monks, of Christian monks, the Benedictines, one of the oldest. And St. Augustine is also one of the oldest too. He was similarly, he was in Africa putting all that together. Anyway, so Uh, there was something that happened with the birds as an omen. You know, it's um, that's what they call it. Um, anyway, the reading of birds is a divination tradition in prophecy. So I can't remember the long Latin name of it, but some of you might know. Anyway, the so here's what happened. Uh, it was around 6 o'clock, and everybody was kind of enjoying. It was a little cute little baby seagull that, I mean, he was like only a third the size of his mother. He was just out of the egg, and he's all scraggly. I mean, kind of looks like my beard, you know. It's just like, and she had come flying in, and she had supper. It looked She had to vomit it out, regurgitate it, and he's waiting, and it falls out of her mouth as this gray, furry mess, probably a rat, a small rat or something. And she was trying to coax him to eat it, and so not long after that happened, the supper was disturbed by the white smoke. Now, some people are want to say, what, did we vote a rat in to the office of papacy? I don't think so. I don't know, so there was a drama again with the birds 12 years later. Um, One of the things that was very interesting with the Francis situation is a seagull's one of his animal symbols. So, so that was kind of, okay, that's an interesting coincidence, if not an omen. Um, the other interesting thing that happened is that there was, and I have the actual the CCTV Vatican camera that shows you the whole basilica and the palazzo and all that. They had this amazing thunderstorm on the 5th of December, just before the conclave. And it was at 3 in the morning or something, and so light was coming up, and the thunder was really like, okay, if you wanted to have an omen and have some deep rumbling thunder that's just deeper than normal, it was really kicking off. And of course, that harkened back to 12 years earlier when Benedict resigned his office on the 11th of February, 2013. And that night, there were massive lightning strikes hitting the top of the Basilica Dome. And I have some of the pictures of them. The other thing that had happened was back in 2003 in Argentina, in what would be the summer thunderstorms of December, because the southern hemisphere, there was I think in Buenos Aires or somewhere around there, there was a statue of Saint Peter, the first bishop of Rome, and it had an iron halo around his head, and he's holding the keys of the kingdom of God and Jesus. You know, that's what the Vatican's why they use the keys all the time. He's holding them in his hands, and he had his staff. So I have a before and after shot of a big lightning strike went right for his statue, nobody else. It obliterated his halo, melted away. It obliterated the keys. They were not there anymore, and he just has a stump, a scorched stump for this hand. And I mean, now that's getting into omen worlds for sure, you know, definitely. Um, so so you know, I don't recall, and in all the popes that I looked at, especially modern popes, so I could qualify it by seeing film or CCTV. This only happened as long as I've been looking at it down the whole papacy. This only happened with Francis, and now it's happening again with Leo the 14th. Now, Leo's going to be a no BS pope when it comes to politicians and all. He's going to be tough. He's going to be strong. He's uh, he's also 69, and he is an amateur tennis player, and he's pretty passionate about it. So for a pope, he's in very good shape for his age. He's relatively young to be a pope. I mean, John Paul II was 58 very young when he became pontiff. I mean, I guess it helped him a bit because a lot of his second longest papacy in history after Pius IX. It it he died of Parkinson's. He suffered for half of that with Parkinson's, but he, he's a strong man, strong constitution. It lasted a very long time. I think this Pope Leo the 14th, see, he took the name from another Saint Augustine monk, uh, cardinal, that became of the Pecci family, who became Leo the 13th. And he's modeling himself after Leo the 13th, so socially, I mean, doctrinally conservative, socially liberal. People are trying to project Democrat Republican stuff on papal, what's a traditionalist and what's not. And it's a little more complicated than that. You can have there's a lot of people, well, like this man he's trying to find a bridge. He calls himself the bridge. Well, pontifex means bridge. So he's going to try the bridge, the two sides in there. The traditionalists are gaining more believers than the liberal progressives, which are in the old seats of Catholicism's former strength, but are kind of dwindling in America and Canada, North America, and in Europe. This, the cradle of the Catholic faith. But in South America, Africa, especially in Asia, there's an amazing explosion of people who are becoming Catholics, but they like the traditional way. They like pre-Vatican II. So there's coming a demographic change, and this Pope is going to be how he sails the ship of the Holy See through this, SEE, is going to be important. I think he's going to be there at least 20 to 25 years. He might even break Leo the 13th, who was 68 when he became Pope, very old and sickly, and they thought, oh no, he's just going to be a transitional Pope, because the last one was the longest. That was Pius IX. I think he died in 1878, but I believe he was in the 1840s, and picked. And, you had four popes up to that period in the early 1840s, I think. You had four popes. And for that hunk of the 19th century, after that, you only had two for the rest of it. You had Pius IX, and everybody was hoping, because he was an older Pope, Leo the 13th would not last that long, but he ended up being now the third longest, at around near a quarter century. He actually lived into 1903. He was also replaced by another long Pope, Pius the 10th. And then he died at the beginning of the World War I. And then there was Benedict the 15th that came during the war. And it's amazing what the papal prophecies of Malachi say. His Latin motto was Religio Depopulata. The religion, the faith, depopulated. When you consider all the Catholics on the Central Powers side, all the Catholics on the triumvirate side, the French and others, and the Italians, and all fighting against Germany and Austro-Hungarian Empire. Austro-Hungary is a Catholic country. Southern Germany's Catholic. Basically, Catholics were murdering Catholics at a great rate. And Christians in general, if you just look at all sects, Protestant and Catholic, were going at each other. And literally during his reign, up until, I think he lasted until 1922, I think, long enough to add all the Russians who are lost to the faiths of any Christianity from the anti-Christian and atheistic communist Bolshevik revolution. plus the few million that died in the Russian Civil War. So Orthodox, all of them, it literally happened. During his reign, there was a great depopulation of the Christian faith. And it was kind of the beginning of the end of, it was the beginning of it spreading out of Europe and having more life elsewhere. Yeah, now Pius XII, Pius XI probably died from a Nazi assassination attempt because he was hale and hearty. He was an athletic pope. And he wrote an encyclical when he realized that Nazi Germany was taking over and destroying the religion. And the Nazis did not like the encyclical that he did, and suddenly he ate something and died. He was replaced by a Vatican diplomat, Pius XII. It's interesting that this is a weird thing that happened. It was almost like promoting a prophecy and making it so. There was a documentary done of him during his reign called Pastor Angelicus, the angelic pastor or shepherd. And it was this film promoting him as this very spiritual pastor of Rome. Now, he had a blind spot. His blind spot was he was so against communism because of his atheistic qualities that he would make a pact with the devil like Hitler. In fact, the Vatican exists as a country with its own political borders, very small country inside the city of Rome because of Benito Mussolini and the fascist Italian Empire. They made a decision to create the Vatican Accord, which actually made the Vatican. So it was the fascists that helped the Vatican to be there because the fascists wanted the Pope to be stable and all this problem since Pius IX lost the Papal States. That's when Italy became a nation, and for all those popes after him, it was like they were not leaving the Vatican. Now they made it official, like a country, and they made peace. You know, when sometimes people would say, Hitler's killing millions of Poles. What are you going to do about it, Father? And he said, he said, what about the Poles? He said, well, what about the Germans? All the German Catholics. Do you want me to do something like that and get them all in trouble? So he had a bias towards the Germans. He did on Vatican radio when Hitler invaded the Soviet Union in June 22nd, 1941, the most apocalyptic campaigns of World War II. He got on Vatican radio and, well-meaning, he called it a great crusade, that Hitler's soldiers and the Axis powers were fighting a great crusade to stamp out the godless communists. So he called it a crusade. Yeah, part of that crusade was to get another problem out of the way of the Hitlerians, and that was all the millions of Jews that lived in the Soviet Union, and the Poles and all of that. So he was very reluctant to embrace Churchill and Roosevelt and all these Democrats. He really had he was a triumphal pope. You know, he was old school, autocratic. So it was more in his genes to have better dealings even with the devil of Mussolini and Hitler than it was with Roosevelt and uh, and Churchill. So in a way, the pressures to make him more appealing was this documentary, Pastor Angelicus. And I mean, they'd have these great shots. He's the only pope I ever seen do that. I'm sure others did it before films, but he used to sometimes get he'd be on the altar with all these people, like when the Allies bombed Rome, and he got out there, and what he did was he just would look up unblinking into the sky like that, and it was quite powerful. I mean, he was really in some zone when he did that. Um, but here's the thing: they the movie must have known about Malachi's prophecies. So because he was in the 111 mottos, that is a perfect report of the from 1142 all the way to Benedict, an unbroken succession where every Latin motto in the 5 ways you can define them, everyone, most everything up to 76 when it was printed in sandwiched in a large volume on the history of the Benedictines. Called Lignum Vitae, the line of life, the living line. And it's odd because Malachi's not a Benedictine; he's a Celestine. So Saint Bernard was his best friend. That's where they were very close. The famous Saint Bernard. He died in Saint Bernard's monastery on attempting a second journey to Rome, but he ended up dying there, I think in 1148. So the documentary must have found the motto for Pastor Angelicus, because he was called Pastor Angelicus. So in a way, they fulfilled the prophecy by making the documentary, but it's actually a phrase that was waiting to be fulfilled since way back. So it's kind of an interesting story that way. And oh, we got somebody great.
Yeah, we have a few questions here.
Excellent.
So, from your perspective, why do you think the Pope picked Leo?
Picked who?
Why do you think that the Pope picked the name Leo?
Oh, well, he's an Augustinian, and the previous Pope Leo the 13th was also an Augustinian. So he kind of models himself, just like Benedict wanted to model himself after Saint Bernard back in 500 BC. This current Pope, who actually ran the Order of the Augustines for 12 years, first 12 years of the new century. That's the main reason he wants to do the social justice, make it a little more progressive, but at the same time, he's also going to be more conservative about the doctrine. So you're going to have one aspect of him being like Francis, but I think a lot less so when it comes to dogma. So that's what I'm going to get into his astrology about that soon. It'll be published in about 4 days. But yeah, so that's the main reason he really admired him. A lot of popes do that.
Do you see the picture where he's praying at Pope Francis's grave today?
Yes, I did, and that's such a beautiful
I know.
church.
Uh,
I think it's the San Maria Maggiore, which is way into Rome. It was where Francis used to like to go. He liked it and he wanted to be buried in the wall there. And I think it's very lovely how they kept it simple with a little larger version of the cross, the silver cross he used to wear, just Franciscus, and a little marble slab of the light. It's really, it's Zen. Very, for Catholics, it's about as Zen as you get.
I'm glad you used that term because I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
There's something about, even though Francis was an individual that was, um, I'll use the term simplistic. He didn't use all the trappings. He didn't take on all the trappings of the popehood. I guess is the term.
Like St. Francis, that was his model. He was following St. Francis.
But you see
My
that
favorite
so
saint.
in Zen Buddhism, you see that it's especially in Japan, simple design, simple lines. But there's also that picture also showed a little bit of a minimalism
Yeah.
that's modern.
Yeah.
There's a modern aspect to it that was
Yeah.
strange in that picture.
Well, he was quite revolutionary that way. And I know when it happened, I was kind of, the first things I wrote about it says, well, because I wanted the shoes of the fisherman, the movie. where there's a guy who's a Ukrainian Catholic in Soviet Union, and he's even put in Stalin's gulags and all that. He somehow manages to get out of all that, and one thing leads to another. There's a conclave, and he was very much. It was a very prophetic movie. He actually was like Pope Francis. And what happened was there was a big famine in Red China, and so to stop World War III from happening, he's saying we have to become a more rich in spirit and poor in things. This Catholic faith, so they're selling off all the art and stuff like that to make enough money to get the food so that China didn't go to war with the Soviet Union. And the premier of the Soviet Union was played by Olivier. He really did the Russian perfect. And then the other guy who played the head of the Mao character was actually the Japanese butler that always fought with in the Pink Panther. You know, when he was going, oh, he
Oh,
come out
wow.
of nowhere. That same actor played a serious part as the premier of China, and it's a very good film, a must see. You'll be shocked at the parallels. And so I was saying, well, I got my Cardinal. Let's see, his Cyril. I was hoping there'd be a Cardinal Cyril, and actually, he was a lot like that. But I can see now where there's balance. That got a little out of balance, and I think this Pope is going to try to bring a little more balance, a little more, because he's got to see what I'm seeing. I mean, I can see it. He's got to see it. That you know, Benedict did one thing that really helped more traditional people. He finally said, because they abolished the Latin Mass in the Vatican too. It was all you can do in whatever language you want. And I can understand they were trying to bring things for Catholic Church to be more, as Francis would say, todos, 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 everyone, everyone, everyone. He just wanted to make it more inclusive. So I think his heart was right with that. But the intriguing thing is how things change. Now there was all that inclusiveness. Now there's a lot of Catholics who yearn to have the Latin Mass back again. And Benedict said, well, if you want to, you don't have to do it in your basement. If each parish decides what way they want to do it, they can do it. That's what Benedict did. Um, and so what's happened is a revival of the Catholic Church, which is not looking for progressiveness at all. It's looking for the old, solid, trustworthy, this is the way it is, deal with it or go somewhere else, because there's a lot of other choices. It's that need that people have when the world becomes more and more chaotic. They want order. They want things that are stable. Now the danger is that's what often happens when democracies become mobocracies, like ours is becoming, like Europe is definitely becoming much worse. And the problem with that is, rather than when you then have people want order, that's when you get the Hitlers, that's when you get the Stalins, that's when you get the other extreme. So that's the fine line that this Pope is going to have to try to get through. But go ahead.
Yeah, there's another question here. Um, you're, have you come across anything? I'm assuming this individual's parlaying it with the Pope. I'm not sure. But the question is, have you come across anything to happen about early and mid-July? I mean, do you have a sense that something will happen early or mid-July?
I think it's earlier. It's the 8th of June. It's very close. I wrote in my last Hogue Prophecy report, if you become a subscriber, you'll be able to see it, that I wrote about this astrological aspect we're already in it. A lot of these phenomenons and stuff and wars and changes are part of it because it's Pluto in its final 8th return, but this time not completely touching the position it had at the birth of the United States in 1776, which was 29 degrees Capricorn. This is an important 8th beyond the 7 passes that started in 2021, that each one saw a lot of the things that are knocking the pillars out of our hegemonic era, and by extension, the domination of history by the West. It's all coming unraveling. And it's since 2021 through just before the election of Trump was seventh pass in October, with a major comet also in the sky, two major comets actually, both called Atlas, and one that just came out of the blue that no one even saw really coming. And so a lot of very powerful potential stuff was going on. So then what happened is, after the election, around in December, I believe, is when Pluto very slowly moved. That's why it's the guardian of great epochal changes and generational changes. It moved out of Capricorn and moved into the realm of revolution, Aquarius, and humanitarian changes, Aquarius. Also, it moved away from blind faith into a future, which is the Aquarian age, is the age of science. Science means, from scita in Latin, means to know. So religions are now starting a process where faith is a Piscean age idea. It was a necessary step in the evolution astrologically of the great ages. But in this twilight interface, which in 150 years will be complete, the Piscean age is now fading. The age of faith and dream, faith of invisible heavens and all that we can't see here. Now, it's not about what you believe, but the future in the next 100 years is going to be about what you know to be true. And in this, what will happen is science will finally have, it's been flopping around with one wing. It's a bird with one wing. And this science that we call just science is objective science. But what is needed is the science of meditation, which is, we don't know how things tick. We know a lot about how the universe, and keep continuing to know more and more about the phenomenons of the universe, or just know, at least we don't know what gravity is, but we know how it works. We still don't know what it is, but we use it. It's using us. Why I'm not flying off into space right now is because of gravity, because this world is moving and also speeding through space. And that's all really wonderful stuff to know, but what use is it if the one who knows it does not know him or herself? That's the problem. Subjective science has to happen, and that is dhyana, witnessing. That is not mindfulness. I would call it, from my own experience of it, being a disciple of Osho, is no mind, fullness. That which is not the mind. So that will bring balance in the Aquarian age, and religion will also be scientific. Go ahead.
So you remember Mary who asked the question last episode. So she has a question, and I think I think that her question dovetails into what you're talking about very well here. So, how do ordinary individuals live out the full measure of their intended creation?
Nice.
I mean, this is pretty deep stuff.
Well, Mary had a great one 2 weeks ago. Well, I'm going to take that to mean, read it again, just so we all can kind of absorb, because it was really good.
Yeah. How do ordinary individuals live out the full measure of their intended creation?
Now that shows it's not just how long you live, but how do you live it? What do you learn the art of living? Do you learn the art of being totally in the world but not of it? Where you're no longer trapped by the conceptualism of the mind that is constantly painting a picture of you against the world, which does not exist. It exists if you dream it. if you have this, and the problem is the art of life is, as I'm under process of going through it, and I'm now entering my 7th decade, so I'm now kind of getting into the culmination, final act of the next 20 years or so. And so I've done a lot of living, and I've had many experiences and lived all over the planet, lots of things happening. Um, I'm surprised that I got this far. Uh, my my father never thought I'd survive the 2020 or something. Um, I was just too sensitive for the world, but I somehow managed it. And so the art of living to your full measure, maybe meaning like when Ibis or the god with the bird head weighs your heart in the Egyptian tradition, ancient Egyptian tradition, weigh your heart. They pull the heart out and weighs it in the thing, put it back in, and then you find out if your heart is light, then you have lived well, and you go to a better place after that. Um, it's how you're able to respond to what life throws at you. And to be open to whatever is there and accepting if it's frightening and things. I mean, I tell you right now, I'm desperately needing help from my readers and people who watch this show to pitch in, because it's getting really lean. And I remember times when I'd be really eaten up by that. I'm definitely doing things that will try to help my revenue stream, but that also needs the help of patrons. I am going to start a Patreon page once I get these articles finished. The latter half of May, I'll be involved in that. I'm also going to try to update my website so that cell phones can read it. And then I'm also going to get on Substack as well and start doing more of that. But people, I'm in desperate need of patrons, but I just am not afraid like I used to be about it. I used to, um, when you're not putting a lot of energy in something that's triggering fear. I mean, you have to go into the fear to understand it. I'm not saying avoid fear. In fact, if you avoid fear, one of the worst twists of life is, I mean, Osho used to say, always, whatsoever you fear, face it. Here now. Whatsoever you want to avoid, never avoid it. Go right into it. Go to the very center of the thing you fear. I mean, there's one meditation you had where you put the room into darkness for an hour, you lock it, you tell your friends, don't worry if you hear crying or anything. It's just a meditation. The alarm will come off in an hour and I'll be out. But he would have people go into a dark room and say, look, nothing that's dark. That's all that's going to happen there is you're going to see your fears and just see them, face them. And when you do that, things get clearer, because fear eats up fear and desire and ambitions, eats so much of our life force up in identity. And I mean, I identify with being afraid of having this. And I mean, thing is, I've been in this space before, but it really changed when I realized, when I could then take stock of my life and realize that I have the 11th hour luck. Always it happens that something happens that fixes it. Now, maybe this is not the time where that's going to happen. Who knows? But I must say, I am in desperate need of more people being patrons than I have right now. So we'll just see if that happens. So that's one way of life. The other way of life is how you face death in your life. Um, I had a very beautiful experience that I wasn't sure was going to be beautiful with my mother. We were very, very close, and she also became a disciple of Osho, so we had even that dimension in our relationship. We were just, sometimes the usual way is you want your soulmate to be somebody you marry. Well, it didn't happen that way for me. And when I realized that was what happened, I relaxed and things were flowing just right. I accepting things, saying yes to whatever happens, and finding an art of living with it. For instance, one of the great stories is the Sufi master and his disciples ended up having to pass through an area where the Muslims were very uh, fundamentalist, and they didn't like Sufis. They thought they were kafir, they thought they were haram, blasphemous. And so they were literally being run out of towns. They asked for food and were denied food and water, and they often had to sleep out in the desert. And there was this feeling of people trying to hunt them down. Now, their master at the end of each day would always do this beautiful prayer in his final fifth prayer of the five Muslim prayers of the day. And he would say, "Thank you, Allah, for all the beautiful things that you've given us this day." Now, most of the times were great, but in this chapter of their relationship with their master, it couldn't have been worse. But he did not change his prayer, and he meant it. And the disciple was saying, "Why? I got to ask you. We're about to get killed. We've been beaten up. We've been hated and spat on. And how can you say thank you for all of that?" And he said, "Well, God must have wanted that to test us, to help us face danger and evil from a different, more revolutionary response." So, so for him, anything that happened in his life was an opportunity to grow, to become that full measure. So you will not be in control. That's a lot of people burn out their lives by trying to control everything. And I'm a double Scorpio, so I know what it's like to want to control things. The 12th house too, hidden enemies. And so Jesus used to say, "Love your enemies." Uh, I am learning also, love your hidden enemies, the things you were programmed, your survival mechanisms, things like that come up. Love, love your enemies. These are your enemies because they're survival mechanisms that also saved you. I mean, my not showing my anger at home with my alcoholic father, who never want to hurt me, but if he was drunk and he used to be a boxer, he could kill me with a blow. He probably would have, and it would have been he would have gone to jail, and it would have been break up the family and all that. So I wasn't aware of it, but thankfully I spent much of my childhood just trying to make everybody happy. The child of the alcoholic, he's trying to make mom and dad and my brother and everybody happy, and try to and never show his anger around my father. And I ended up, by the time I went to Osho's therapy sessions in Pune in 1980, I got quite a reputation as being the phony baloney Hollywood California, you know. And I didn't feel phony, but everybody saw it. And in groups, when that happens, sometimes you're with the group seeing it in somebody else, and then other times everybody's looking at you now. And if you have a memory, you can't forget that you were all with them, and now you're the one. Everybody's saying, "Yeah, you're phony. You're just totally phony." And the harder you try to be authentic, the more phony you are. And what happened was, and finally in that group is, I had an opportunity to be triggered and all that anger came out that I had been sitting on. I was was 25, when I did that. I had been sitting on it since I was 14. There's a lot of anger there. And I did a group before that where at the assessment at the end of the group after 8 days, the guy said, the Swami was doing, he said, "Man, you've done something I've never thought I'd see before. You managed not to be encountered by anybody in this group for 8 days." And I mean, it was good because I accepted that I was a coward, but I also felt I had a huge thing I didn't know, and I was afraid of it, that if I let it go, well, in fact, the group's leaders in the next group, they said, there was a time there when we thought you were going to kill all of us. Well, I said, I felt like I could. I probably could have, but there is the grace of the master because it all came out, and I wanted to murder them all, and I could have. It's why I have more compassion for mass murders than a lot of people do. I kind of can appreciate that, you know. And if you're always in a situation in life where you can't be yourself, and then you've had to learn all kinds of ways, culturally or otherwise, to fit in a world and it helps you fit in the world, because if you don't do that as a kid, you're probably going to end up dead anyway, or in a mental asylum, or everybody's ostracizing you. So, we make these compromises to survive. Now, as a meditator, when you realize that, I mean, I realized in that moment, and it was helped by the group leaders, that I was not, the thing that helped save me was now ruining my life. And so, Osho has this beautiful meditation for that. When you see, and sometimes it's always in the voice of your father, your mother, or an authority or something. It has a voice, and the voice is usually not your own. It's your mother, your father, your brother, or something. And what I would say to it is, voice of my mother, or my voice of my father, thank you for getting me this far. You did protect me. You thought you were doing right. But now I am safe, and now you can relax. Goodbye. And thank you for your service. You got me this far. Now you can rest and relax and disappear. So, so these are just a few examples. I could go on for hours, but I think there's other people want to ask questions. But Mary, these are some of the ways. The other is also learn from somebody, a master or a disciple of a master who has been with somebody who is an authentic master, an authentic teacher of meditation, not as contemplation, but as dhyana, witnessing in your no mind center that is fullness incarnate. It's not even important what you're watching. You're not there to figure things out. You're there to watch things as they are and as they go. And in the process of watching, these things go away, because identity is what feeds them. And you're not resisting giving them identity, you're watching the process of how it feeds identity. And in the watching of the process, you are no longer part of it. If your watching is happening, you're watching the movie. It's not your reality anymore. So nothing is done, and you haven't dropped anything. If you try, you're going to get in trouble, because you're going to try to become the mind transcending itself. And it can't. You'll do it. Everybody does it. It's okay. Watch that too. You'll see it's absolutely futile. So, so these are some of the ways. So that's why I often offer people at the end of my articles or stuff a email where I have in it all the techniques that I have learned from Osho, which I contend are techniques that are tailored for the needs of people in the modern times living in this mind amplified and soon to be artificially stupid intelligence amplified world. It may very well be what saves the human race from its extinction from artificial intelligence. For this is the most dangerous thing, as I've said before on this show. The most dangerous thing we're doing is not nuclear war. It's not climate change. It's artificial intelligence. How can artificial be intelligent? Well, that means the people who believe they're intelligent are thinking artificial intelligence is a good thing. Well, that's not a very intelligent or wise thing. And that's, anyway, I won't go into my rants about that tonight. But yeah, so these are some of the things. And hopefully we'll come back to this theme again and I will share other things.
Okay, the next question, John. Someone's asking what your thoughts are of Sai Baba, who died 5 years ago.
Such a Sai Baba. Now, there's two Sai Babas. Actually, such a Sai Baba of Shirdi was not that far away from my Pune ashram. Also, Pune was where Meher Baba lived. Meherbad was another ashram not far from ours in Pune, in Koregaon Park. So I'm thinking you mean the Satya Sai Baba who was in Bangalore, who was said he was the reincarnation of Sai Baba of Shirdi. I'm presuming that. Um, all I can say about that is there's a funny story that comes to mind. Um, when Osho was traveling and talking all over India, it often happened that a lot of his followers were the followers of Krishnamurti or the followers of Satya Sai Baba. And they would be watching both him and Sai Baba. And it just happened that in one of the times when he was passing through Bombay, he so happened to be his guest room for the discourses was literally the bed had been just warmed by Satya Sai Baba, who was in such a hurry they left one of his suitcases. So Osho saw the suitcase in the corner and he just said, well, let's look and see what's inside it. So he unzipped it. And what was inside were a bunch of Rolex watches. Yeah, I should have heard it. With Osho's delivery is much better than mine. And then what I saw was all these Rolex watches. Everybody cracks up. He just does a deadpan, best deadpan humor guy I ever saw. So, the story is, Satya Sai Baba used to like to make vibhuti and miracles. And Osho always said that anybody that does miracle working, you're going to get a very, well, you're going to get maybe not the people who are going to really work on themselves, but are just going to be followers of miracles. And I mean, I think Satya Sai Baba really had city powers because I was watching Vibhuti coming out of a framed bit of Vibhuti in California. I had some friends. I went to their restaurant all the time, Indian restaurant, and I used to go to their house a lot, and I would watch how the Vibhuti was growing. You know, so I mean, there are city powers, but as Ramakrishna, the great Bengali mystic, once said that a whole lot of people on the path often become casualties of their pride and ego by seeking city powers. They should never be sought. If they happen, they happen. And so I think it's just like Madame Blavatsky. She really had psychic powers, but when she got older and people were demanding she show more, she lost them. So at the end of her illustrious career of creating theosophy, they sometimes would catch fakes that she was starting to fake. And it's a shame because I think she wasn't faking before, but she was now in this ego trip about it. It's like, oh God, now I'm defined by my miracle working. I've got to keep this up or everybody will leave. So her ego got in. And I'm wondering sometimes because Sai Baba he used to reach in and he'd pull out a Krishna statue fully formed and give it to person, or he'd reach in and he'd find a Rolex watch. And now Osho used to say, why Rolex? Why not a more expensive watch? I mean, you can make them out of gold, can't you? Why have why a cheap watch? Why not get something stronger? So that's one experience of such a Sai Baba that I know of. But Osho said that Sai Baba of Shirdi, who this later Sai Baba claimed was his reincarnation. He was for real. He was amazing. And you see the difference in the picture. He looked like Hanuman, the monkey god. And uh, yeah, so I mean, Osho used to do things with energy. He used to put his hands on people, and he'd be sitting in his chair, and he had all these female dancers who would build the feminine energy in a circular energy, and then he had a switch where he could turn off all the lights in the ashram, and then the band would play, and everybody would dance in like a Sufi zikr to a point of to the limits of their body, and then suddenly stuff would happen, so. Um, but he didn't pack anything in his suitcase that helped him do that.
I thought that was a pretty funny story.
Yeah, it was funny when I first heard it.
Well, the first thing that popped in my head was in Battery Park in Lower Manhattan. You have all these individuals from the Caribbean that, that's how they make a living, and they just sell, watches. They have these cases, and literally that's all they're doing is just selling fake watches in Battery Park. So that's what I was thinking in my head.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Next question.
Hmm?
I don't know if you have an opinion on this or not, but he's asking what's your thoughts of I Pet Goat animation?
Well, I like anime.
Well, I think I Pet Goat is an animation that is kind of has some sort of prediction of where the where society is going. Some people made a correlation between what's in the animation and COVID. Um, but I think maybe let me rephrase the question, not so much about iPet Goat, but how certain modalities, either animation, movies, where people may have some sort of representation of the future through their viewing, but is it true or is it just representational bias?
Well, I mean, that's a little. I mean, one of the books that I probably won't have time to do, so I might just do it as an essay in the book of things to come, and that's of a few thousand words. And this is where I do my list of with a short paragraph of the 100 most prophetic movies ever made, and Shoes of the Fisherman be one of them. And the arts have a connection to prophecy, um, especially if they're not presuming to do it, but it just happens. I mean, it's like when my mentor Ray Bradbury would just, he would just start up a story. On Monday he said, "Put your objective mind aside and vomit all over the typewriter." In those days, just don't think, just keep going, and then spend the next 6 days cleaning it up with your left brain. So, out of such things, I mean, science fiction is a form of prophecy. Some of the greatest prophecies have come out of science fiction. So it's kind of it's about as mainstream a prophetic discipline as there is. Philip K. Dick had amazing ideas. Um, Bradbury too. Actually, Bradbury got with Fahrenheit 451, he got the idea of dystopia closest to what it really is like. Orwell, it might get to Orwell in 1984, but he wrote about a society in the future where everybody was basically affluent, and you had all these three-dimensional screens that you just lost your brains watching, like we do. You have phones that are the same way and all of that. So he saw the 3D screens and how people, the artificial intelligence of all the entertainment, they didn't think for themselves anymore. They didn't feel anymore. One of the best scenes in the movie that Bradbury helped Francois Truffaut make, with the Bernard Herrmann haunting music, Fahrenheit 451, shot in France in the countryside in November, very moody. And then they had a first snow in the final act of the movie. They just filmed all the scenes in time in the sequence because the snow was falling. And he said, no, don't pack up, keep going. And Bradbury said to a bunch of us, he said, I thought Truffaut's ending to the movie was far superior to my ending of the book. And that's saying something, because that's the moment I knew I was going to be a writer. I finished the book. I closed it, looked up, and I said it to no one but myself. I said, I'm going to be a writer. And then I ended up meeting Ray and thanking him for Fahrenheit 451, thanking him for the Martian Chronicles. And he ended up reading my stuff and gave me a lot of encouragement. 10 years later, I dropped, after trying for fiction for 10 years, I started my first nonfiction prophecy book, and it was an international bestseller. So I ended up, I told him about our stories, and I gave him a copy of the book and signed it, and I said, sometimes tell your wife that sometimes when you play the cat dragging in something through the front door, that thing actually 10 years later becomes a bestseller. It works. This is just to give you some objective proof that no matter how idiotic the person comes at your door, sometimes it works. If they listen to you, they learn, and it works. He wrote back one of the most wonderful letters I've ever received from anybody. Yeah, and said, "Well, if we ever meet, I'll buy you a beer." We never met again, but we probably would have had too many beers. So, so, um, goat. I've heard now it's like the goat cartoon thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I had time, I'd write or update the book on divinational terms, because there's just all kinds of ways. You can read birds, you can use anything. And if it triggers the event, then it doesn't matter. It could be, there was the Brahman seer in Scotland. All he had was a meteorite, and he used to scry. He used to look at the polished meteorite, and in the darkness of the polished meteorite, he made remarkable prophecies. Nostradamus tried all kinds of things, but the most important thing he did was he was a channeler of planes, different entities in different planes, including demonic. Just like he read the book of Solomon, so he understood the biblical Hebrew folk tales of how Solomon was given the power to use demons sometimes as servants for lower tasks and things like that. And so he people, presences of the lower astral. Um, so the prophetic tools that you use, if they work, it doesn't matter what they are. If you tap your head 3 times or something like that. I mean, I use astrology to trigger it. People think I'm an astrologer. I'm not an astrologer. I use astrology sometimes, and in certain ways. In fact, I was just looking. I use Plotinus. So a lot of people were talking about the Pope's prophecy about his astrological makeup in Vedic astrology, and it was a really fine dissertation I saw this morning from one Hogarth, I think is his name, online. Check him out. And he did a really good job. And then as I was doing my own work through Plotinus, it came to me, well, Plotinus is a little off time-wise. I said, it's not about the time. It's about what it does to me. If it's 2 taps rather than 3, and that works, you go there. So it's subjective. I think people try too hard to make objectifying this prophecy as if you had instructional, then you would know how to do it. No, you have to have the sight. You know, you have to have loved to write about love because it's subjective. You have to, as anybody writing about prophecy, you have to also have the gift. Otherwise, it's like I'm a master of talking about love because I never loved. Well, anybody who's loved would think you're a fool. And it goes the same with prophecy. You have to have the theurgic right in your being.
My observation with people on X these days, because social media kind of has dumbed people down, in my opinion. It's
Mm.
that they'll see something, and because they have they're coding their gene for the David Icke, you have to connect the dots. So what happens is social media dumbs you down, and then they see some posts and they automatically are trying to connect the dots that don't really connect in any logical fashion. And they extract, so they're connecting dots, and then they extrapolate, and they go, well, can't you see it? And if you don't see it, then you're not part of the club. But
Yeah.
it's just
Complete idiots.
yeah.
Complete idiot.
And so it gets to the point where some of these people on social media, they see a fluffy cloud in the sky, and they see an elephant, and they're assuming that there must be a circus in the sky.
It's a good analogy, Paul, because this is what people do with Nostradamus for the last 4.7 centuries. He purposely made his prophecies nebulous, like clouds. And when you start to see the cloud as a cloud, that's when you have a chance to actually see what he's really talking about. I guess I've lasted 50 years because a lot of these things that most people never understand at the beginning of their infatuation with Nostradamus ends up guiding them. I mean, I've got people who, and if you're out there, please listen. I never respond to your stuff because it's just, I tried a few times and it's just, I tell you what you're doing and you're just not, oh, here's another one. It's like the guy going, oh, well, I saw an elephant, so I wrote a whole book about the elephant that I saw. I said, there's no elephant. Somebody else would have seen a giraffe. So, I feel that you're wasting your time with me because I'm just erasing your stuff. I take a look, but it's like, I was hoping that something might have changed, but you're stuck in a groove and you think the groove is real. And it's I'm really sorry for you because that's wasting your life.
There's such a desire out there now because of this dumbing down of through social media, this dumbing down, that there is that everyone is trying to find correlations and assume causation.
Yes. And they don't even, and they have lost, they never got even trained in critical thinking.
Right.
Now, you and I grew up in educational systems where teachers did things to make us critically think. I think, like in the last show, I was saying okay, we're going to do a debate. Here's the one that's for abortion. Here's the one that's against abortion. How many want to do for abortion? Raise your hands. How many want to do against abortion? And then the teacher said, okay, all of you are against now, you're going to defend it. And all you people are for it, you're going to defend abortion. Why? Why? I said, well, no. And then if you can't think, that will help you learn how to think where the other person's thinking. I would do the same. Okay, you're going to defend fascism, even though you're against it, and you're not. And you learn to think. If you can learn how Hitler thinks, you have a better chance of defeating him.
John, this is a true story that happened. So the last show that I was on with Mike Adams, talking about how there was going to be an uptick in cancers. This is 2 years ago. I said that there was going to be an uptick in cancers through the inoculation and through the pathogen. And I gave them the mechanisms, what proteins within the pathogen that actually are tumor suppressor inhibitors, and also what's in the inoculation that also shuts down P53, which is a tumor suppressor. So, I'm going into detail. There's literally literally, going after the show and it's posted and you're reading the comments. Some people post really nice comments that, they are thankful of, me spending the time to explain something that's complicated. There's others that have this, they're stuck in this mindset that pathogens don't exist, right? They don't believe in germ theory, which is okay. That's
Well, Howard Hughes used to do that.
but the thing is but the point here is that they literally stated, Mike Adams, you shouldn't have him on your platform. He doesn't belong here because he doesn't believe like we do, So it's like social media. This is part of the dumbing down. Part of the dumbing down is because too much screen time and the light, that blue light actually puts you in a certain brain wave that actually lowers your intelligence if you're exposed to it for too long. But there is the siloing of society and the echo chamber that prevents real dialogue. And this is a big problem.
Big problem.
And you layer in AI with it.
That's about to say, this is the beginning of the pathological that makes people that even are geniuses that get too much screen time. I mean, I have yet to meet a proponent or an innovator of artificial intelligence. Even Elon Musk at least has said the warning, I'm afraid we will be summoning the demon. He's right. But even he does too much TV time, screen time, and seems to forget that. He doesn't remember his own vision of warning, I think, sometimes, because he's now going more deeper into artificial intelligence. What's being lost is the ability to retain, the ability to remember. Even Osho used to say to sannyas and said, look, many of you have literally been on the threshold of the fourth turning of the Turiya, the ultimate. But if you do not acquire a memory of how you got here, you could lose it. And I mean, I know fellow disciples of Osho when he was around and all that clearly had a glimpse of the beyond, and they don't even remember that it happened. You have to know where you've come from, how you got here to this moment. It helps. It gives you context, and context gives you memory. And you should always question yourself. I mean, if the person says, well, I saw an elephant in the cloud, and that's what it should be, and it's not anything else, you should stand out of yourself and say, are you sure? Have you verified this? You're all trust and no verification. How can you know the difference? You can verify everything. It's the only thing Reagan said that I agreed with is trust but verify. Absolutely. I know how accurate I am because I write it all down. I see where I get it wrong and I see where I get it right. But if you just go, well, no, just, what are you afraid of? Why are you afraid of, are you afraid of failure? Are you going to find out the cloud doesn't look like an elephant? That's good. Now you can take that idea away and go deeper. But I mean, I'm amazed how many people who make predictions subconsciously avoid, like the plague, ever recording themselves doing it because they're afraid they'll be wrong. It's the I've said for decades that I saw the coming of a technologically advanced future human society who socially are savages, socially are retards. That they're losing their humanity. They're becoming artificially intelligent. The only way these machines can be built are by people who have already become artificially intelligent. Pseudo, false, fake, because they've dumbed them down. Even Elon Musk has to beware because he could very well fall in the same trap, and he saw it long ago. We are summoning the demon. We are the demon of something that does not live, has no soul, that we give human qualities to. It's just a very sophisticated play toy. And um, if you give everything of your mental capacities to the machine, you eventually lose it like losing a muscle. You will atrophy. And then the machine logically is right. He says, well, you people are breaking down. We'll just erase you. And it has no moral compass because it's not alive.
That's the thing that I noticed with the Singularity Institute. Many of these
Singularity.
people, many of these people that are, that are tied to venture capitalists, and they're trying to build these companies that are tied to AI and all these different things with Kurzweil and all this. They have a common theme about them, and that is they almost seem to hate humanity. They
Yeah.
don't want, and they have this desire. And it's strange. They have this desire to just live forever in the cloud, in the
Yeah.
iCloud. you know, you know,
They want to become a machine
it's so weird. It's
because it's harder, it's more challenging to be a human being.
they're
You're
afraid to
perfectly
be human.
imperfect. They want to be
They're
perfect.
afraid. They're
Yeah.
afraid to be human, and
Yeah.
they
No, they're totally afraid.
somehow they make up that fear through building technologies, thinking that they'll be uploaded into some sort of
Yeah.
Oracle server.
Like Klaus Schwab, he hates his own humanity. Otherwise, he couldn't think like he's thinking. Yeah, they they want to become machines because a machine does not suffer the challenges of being alive. To be organic is a challenge. And it's sometimes very scary and sometimes very hard to deal with. And sometimes people jump off cliffs. But sometimes people become Buddhas. A machine can never become a Buddha. It's not alive. So we're literally trying to think ourselves, talk ourselves out of being authentic intelligence
Well,
as the artificial.
in a kind of strange way, when you look at a child and they're like playing with their toys, right? They imagine their stuffed animal or their Star Wars toy or whatever is real, and has a personality, and so with social media, we've kind of lost our adult thinking, and we've gone into the world of imagination. There's nothing wrong with imagination. I'm not saying
No.
there is anything wrong, and actually, imagination is important. But the thing is that they adults have become detached from reality, and they're not thinking rationally. They're not objective, and this is the problem. And then you layer in the AI that's doing the thinking for you, and you have a big section of society. And maybe the 80-20 rule, 80% of the society is just really going to be retarded.
One of my most important essays in the Book of Things That Come is called The Zombie Prophecies. And it looks at why we are fascinated with zombies. And the argument basically, I point out we are zombies. And that's why we're so pulled to them, frightened of them, attracted to them, because we're eating our brains out. Um, and the funny thing of what you're saying earlier about imagination, my God, I would play with my toys, but I must have been more witnessing of it. I've reached halfway through my 70th year, and it's just getting better. It's just getting more amazing and more effortless, and all the things are popping in there. There, there's critical thinking. It could actually, even these tools. There's nothing, even artificial intelligence, if the human organics are mindful or no mindfulness of the reality, that you never let them be anything more than servants. Do not presume humanity upon them. They are not even alive. So Data is never going to become a living being. Pinocchio is a wooden dummy. That's just, that's reality, folks. You can beat your hands into a bloody pulp that the cloud isn't an elephant. Well, there you are with your bloody hands, you know, acting like a 7-year-old. It is true. Most people, unfortunately, most people, not because they wished it or wanted it, but because the society is so unconscious in its mechanicalness. You see, Gurdjieff really used to get into this a lot, and Osho did too, but Gurdjieff was really brilliant with it, is how human beings are machines, that they don't really even have a soul. They have to earn it through bringing more consciousness to their actions. And so his whole idea was that. Now, Osho had the opposite view, saying, well, you do have a soul. But Gurdjieff is right in a way, because if you don't actually water your soul and feed it the right soil, and that seed will remain as dead as a seed with all that wonderful potential of a huge sequoia tree in it, but it'll just lay there in the ground and eventually just become manure for some other seed. And that's your soul. So both are right. Gurdjieff was in the Russian Empire, late decades of the Russian Empire, where everybody in Russia is always talking about the dushe, the soul. And he used the device much more effectively. He said, you have no dushe. There's no dushe in you. That's just imagined. You have to create the dushe. I love the Russian word for soul, dushe. It's very, or lubiu. I love you, lubiu. I must learn Russian someday. I can get myself in trouble. I know enough to get myself
I've
in
met a lot
trouble.
of Russian engineers. They were good engineers, actually.
Yes, they
But
still are. They're even better now. I mean, my God, if people, this is another thing of ignoramus land. If it's I wish that Trump would go. He should have flown and been there for the parade. Just show up like Trump can do, just out of the blue, no agenda. He's just going to stand with Chinese, Xi and Putin as the big three. I would have advised him to just go and be there. It would be a good gesture, a surprising gesture, and you would see Moscow. You will see what I've been seeing for years. Not just that city, but you can get online if you know how to use this right. You can go if you can't physically be there, you can go to every city in Russia if you want and see if they're really dumps or not. Well, they're not. I saw something last week. Oh gosh, what was it? It was shot. Oh yes, it was. I saw some footage of some news I saw when they were bombing the White House in 1991, a few days ago. I had my friend Diwamani up here, and we were looking online. I actually found the news reports that I saw in August of 1991 when I was packing up, getting ready to go to Paris with my French girlfriend, and and back then CNN was shooting it live, so it literally was live. They weren't censoring anything. So and then I remembered, but I remembered it with what I know now, what I've seen in the last 10 years. Um, that was Russia in the Soviet collapse, and Moscow looked like a dump. It looked like a ruin. Everything faded, everything. But God, what has happened to Moscow? It is the greatest city on the planet right now. It is truly something to behold. So just go in online and dare yourself to watch a flyover of today's Moscow. Just type in, um, here's Gorky Park on a Saturday evening in summer. And you'll watch the guys walking around with their phones, filming everybody and walking a couple miles through all these amazing parts of Moscow. And it's just, I've forgotten how much it has changed. So Russia is on the up and up. We're on the way down. We're becoming that dirty ruin. You know, if you misuse your magical tools of this wide and wonderful world of the 21st century, you deserve exactly what's happening to you.
Right.
If you can see that, if you have the real courage to face that you're doing it, you're responsible for it, you can change. If you're always saying it's everybody, it's Trump, he's at fault, it's it's Biden, it's Trump, then you're giving your power away. It's you. It's always you. How else can it be? How can you change if it isn't always you that's responsible for your life, whether it's good or bad, or how you react to things that happen in your life? It's you reacting that really needs to be watched. It's the only person that really matters. If you start really watching yourself, it'll change your whole attitude about yourself and others. You'll become a witness of everything. It changes everything. It's spiritual revolution. I'm a spiritual revolutionary. My tool is no mind fullness.
We're to that hour, John. So I want to remind the audience, in the description box of this video and all the videos I do with John, there is a link that you can click that will take you to his website. Please click that link, help support John's work. You can sign up for his periodical, you can sign up for a reading. Please go and get his books, purchase his books, and help support John. So
Yeah, a lot of them are just $3.99, and you can get an ebook for $2.99, $3.99. You
so
got it.
yeah, so you want to describe a little bit of what's in a periodical and what the readings are before we go?
The Hogue Prophecy Report is something I started in 2020. It was kind of my own do-it-yourself Substack. Um, and it's fully illustrated. It's very pretty. Some stuff in it, the pictures and all. And it's my report on the world. And these every year becomes more. I tell people, look, if you're trying to find an original take on things, and I think if you've been watching me a while, you're finding that I have a lot of original takes on things. Uh, go deeper with the report, because in the report I take this all much more deep. Um, you know, so 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 you just go to my website, hogueprophecy.com. Well, you'll see the link for it. Go click on that link and read the freebies that I have there. If you have a problem on your phone reading them, get Adobe Liquid or something, I think it's called. If you get that, you can take any old website and make it format change. And soon I'm going to have that automatically in there, so that the phones will not have that problem. But yeah, put it on Adobe file, those files that make it conform to your phone, and they're free. You can download them free, and then you can really see them. Rather than try to move it around like this on your phone in the little print. So that'll improve soon. That's my responsibility, and I will improve that soon. But if you watch the reports, I send them to you as a PDF file. I on the email that you use at PayPal to donate either $60 for a whole 12 months, or get on an automatic program when you give me what amount of money, $5, $8, $10 a month, that automatically comes out until the day comes when you want to stop it or not. And then you will get these reports. They usually come, well, these days they're coming I used to have at least 6 weeks where I could get to other things, but these are coming hard and furious. So get in while it's hot because I'm putting out a lot of reports these days, but it's usually during the end of a month and the beginning of another month. But I've been a few times here starting a new report just after 2 weeks. Um, so they're they're very informative. They're beautifully illustrated. I try to do funny stuff because this prophecy can be kind of scary, so I try to get comical sometimes in some of it. And yeah, just see it. And of course, if you do it through an email like this, it's not the cutting edge tech, but it's free of censorship. Because what I'm discovering is if it's not the most cool thing of the new technology, if it's something a step back that used to be the new cool thing, that step back, there's where your First Amendment freedoms are. Because all this other stuff's being surveilled and stuff like that. But who surveils an email? So, and this is a very important thing in our time of techno-fascism, where people are technologically denied their free speech. You may find that I'm one of the few places where you can find another story because of the way I do it. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I do readings. They are often they can be 2 hours. I go deep. Time really speeds right off. I use Zoom. Sometimes what I do with it is I do the Zoom 40 minutes free, and then we take a break for 10 minutes. You get up, stretch. While you're doing that, I'm looking deeper in your astrology and other things to answer some questions and stuff that happens. And then we'll do about 3 of those, 3 times 40 minutes with the 10-minute bits. And in that process, you will have an experience of relativity. I don't know why it happens, but it happens. The 40 minutes comes by faster and faster and faster. Suddenly, the little warning that you got 10 minutes left before it goes off seems to come. Oh my God, we're already there. What happened? People really, it's not just me, it's everybody's going, my God, what's going on in these readings? It's fascinating. So that's another great way to help yourself. And I often give you the meditation techniques often comes up for you, and I explain how to do them. Um, I always keep hearing about this blue light stuff. I even have a blue background in my screen. I don't. I understand that people are having that happening to them. I'm online all the time, but I'm not. And sometimes I'll get deep into X trying to find something that isn't absolutely stupid. And my eyes will start to water. Maybe that helps. I go, well, okay, I got quit. My eyes are watering. Um, but I'm not suffering from these issues of people. I'm not getting dumbed down by it. So I'm starting to wonder if there's something about the meditations that I do that might help my brain remain my brain that I use and not have it sucked out because I'm watching that. And if I'm watching it, it's not happening. So I'm exploring that. I don't know if I am losing something or not, but I I seem to be fresh and I'm on the computer all the time. So
Well, I think you're hitting on something that's important, and that is the realization that good health, body and brain health, um, is a holistic approach. And one of the pillars of that holistic approach is mindfulness or spirituality or
no
meditation.
mindfulness.
But the thing is that there is physiological effects of meditation.
Yes.
Most people, especially in the United States, are stressed. They're
Yes.
stressed with their diet. They're stressed with work and with you know,
I'm not stressed.
issues or whatever. But the thing is that through stress, physiologically, their cortisol levels are higher.
Yeah.
But individuals that have a very strong level of meditation, have lots of practice of meditation, they have a tendency to bring their body into parasympathetic mode and reduce
Yes.
the cortisol level. So when you reduce the cortisol level, then you're reducing issues, because high cortisol levels can eat and cause damage to your tissues, to your organ systems. Your immune system starts to go down. So individuals that meditate, their blood pressures goes down. They have a different brain wave. Even if
Yes.
you're looking
Delta.
at brain waves, it's a different activity.
Delta wave.
Yeah. So, and then, you're going into parasympathetic, you're reducing the cortisol levels. So
So
I totally can see that someone that does a lot of meditation or has a very strong, meditative practice, they can offset some of the modern ills of American life.
it's true, because the other thing too is that meditation, if you're having a problem with your body, you make it worse by being identified with it. Oh, I want this pain to go away. And you don't suppress that, but you watch yourself in that process of, I want this pain to go away. I want, and you'll notice that it gets worse. And so do the opposite of what your ego thinks. This is one of the meditations of Osho, is where if you're feeling pain, don't avoid it. In your cowering back, you're actually being pulled in to deeper stress. When you have a pain and it's really bad, take your attention to the very center of it, right to the center. And if you do it, if you just allow it, you will find that it's not your pain that is hurting, it's your identification with it. And in so many ways, this is the secret of the art of living. So many things that we feel are hitting us or hurting us, it's not the thing, it's the identification with the thing. I want this pain to end. I want this pain to end. Just be there with the pain. And the strange thing is that you will actually, your pain will be more intense, but you will not be hurting. What's missing is the identity. You will feel your pain, you will feel the essence of your pain even more immense, but you will not be, oh my God. I mean, sometimes it happens if I drink too much water to keep myself hydrated. I'll wake up and get a hamstring cramp. And what I'll watch is I suddenly, when the pain comes, I started watching myself. And the first thing you go is, ah, because it's quite a pain. It starts and it's moving on its own power. But immediately now these days I go, ah, and I just stop and let it happen. The pain is even more vivid, but I'm not fighting it. I'm just there. And the other thing that's important is I give my body mind a lot of endorphin baths through classical music, especially Wagner and Bruckner and Mahler and Schubert and Shostakovich and things. I find a thing that triggers an orgasmic rush without sex, where, I mean, if you've had orgasm in sex, you've got an idea of what that is. And it was actually orgasm in ancient times that made people who became tantrikas think, well, is there a way to have this no mind, body melting, ecstatic experience without a cause to make it in effect? And they learned that yes, you can you can make it so any aesthetic thing, if you see a distant mountain peak in an ugly city, but your attention comes to the mountain peak and you start feeling blissful, one of the meditations is immediately go in, close your eyes and go right into your center, right when you go, oh, look at, we come out of that cave and there's all the Yosemite Valley. and you will find that your bliss and joy, the existence is a reflector of your Buddhahood. The whole existence can be hell on earth for you if you're not doing that. Or you can see a flower, or the way a twist of cloud in the sky, or the way the ocean is dancing. And you'll feel it. You feel this thing that you think is in the ocean is you. It's the awakened one. A Buddha said, when I became, and talk about a guy who went through a lot of stress. He was eating one hemp seed a day at one point. He was skin and bones. There's a statue of him, literally skin and bones. And it was around that time that he dropped all that. And when he became enlightened, he said, the whole world became enlightened with me. So this world of appearances uh, like a mirror, can reflect your enlightenment in it. And then, so, so, often I'll be writing, I'll play some classical music, or I'll just listen to classical music, and I'll stop. I should have a Hogue cam. It's like when you have the birds and you have the hawks and they're making eggs and they're making chicks, and we should have the Hogue cam. The Hogue cam is there, and it's always when I'm writing and I'm playing all this beautiful classical music, and then suddenly I just go, like endorphins come down from the head to the toes. I mean, and I can tell that it is. The body is being nourished. I mean, you could even try it when you're masturbating. It is that's another way to do it where and then if you're not with anybody, then let the orgasm come and give it as a gift to your own body mind, like giving a gift to your beloved, because you are a beloved unto yourself as well. So these are these ways to bring your life force, because it is sexual, to higher levels, higher chakras. Um, I mean, I plunged deeply into sexuality, and I am at a point now where um, I'm in my 70s. I'm past the whole sex thing, and all that orgasmic stuff is rising in me. A lot of people, when their sex life ends, they think, well, nothing left. They feel like they're a corpse, and they wish they were young again. No, you could. This energy is your life force. It's meant to rise and rise in you, and then in its rising, it can descend upon you like grace from the divine. It's so ordinary. It's so here now that the ego is always missing it, because it's in the mind, because it's always trying to find a cause for all effects. This thing has no cause. It is an effect, and you can tap into it. It's always there. You can tap into it. And I think that is probably why I'm able to really go into some there's so much garbage on X now. And now before, I wanted to say this several times. It's funny. It's terrible and funny at the same time, but I was watching a documentary, and this has just happened in the last few weeks. It's like a whole new artificial invasion of artificial intelligence has come online, where, it's not just the usual things where you got that kind of robot voice that, well, there's a bot and we're hearing about the history of stuff. And you'll notice that halfway through the show, it repeats itself 2 or 3 times. And it's like it says it 3 or 4 times. And I guess people are getting so dumb they don't notice. Yeah, and I'm starting to imitate. Yeah, and this and then I turn it off because it's just a broken record. And now they're doing something where they're not actually making the effort to find the historical footage, like what happened to Saint-Pierre in 1902 when Mont Pelée had a pyroclastic flow and wiped it out. And then so I thought, oh well, so it was all completely artificially intelligently designed. And sometimes it had French, Creole, Martinique, architecture. And all the people, when they're seeing the volcano, they're all walking towards it like zombies. They're all like going, and then sometimes it's Indian villages. Sometimes the people are dressed like Indians, sometimes the people are dressed like normal. And then every once in a while, there's the big red-nosed people who are trying to say they were the governors of the town saying, oh, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. And they're just a dumb cartoon. It's like it's a dumb machine trying to pretend to be intelligent. And it's suddenly all the documentaries, there's a flood of documentaries that are coming online that are all like that, where they're teaching you history and it's all screwed up. The uniforms aren't right, the costumes keep changing. And man, if you watch that stuff without self-observation, you're going to end up just like those documentaries yourself. I have self-observation. I guess that's why it's not hitting me. I'm seeing it, what's doing to people. And it's just been the last month that suddenly this wave of it is coming. It's almost crowding out all the really good documentaries that are out there. I mean, I have I've used this connection to the world. I can read the world. If you do it, if you have a watchfulness, I can get on the internet and find, and the whole world opens to me because I am open to it. If you're unaware of how internet is really trying to isolate you into only the things you like and only the people that like the things you like. And for at first it's really nice because everybody's your friend and all, but all you're doing is just magnifying your own limits. You can change that by just typing in any old thing, type something you're not even thinking about. The algorithms then start giving you everything rather than isolate you, isolate you, isolate you. If you just start, well, I'm just going to do
It's
pandas, the
interesting you
purple
bring.
pandas over here, and I'm going to do the history of something I'm not at all interested in, the history of beavers in Alaska over there, or and suddenly
Well,
it
I
opens
mean,
up.
how these neural networks work, John, is that at what these nodal points have 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 connections, right? And there's primary, secondary, and tertiary connections, and they have probability numbers associated with those nodes. And so when you search within a small cluster, those probabilities of those nodes increases. So so the algorithm will keep you in that high conductivity based on
Mhm.
that probability, high probability. When you start typing in things outside of that cluster, then it weakens those nodes, and it grows that neural network
It
until you
sets you
start putting.
free.
Right, right, right.
All you have to do, folks, is stop being so predictable.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see what I see, and then you'll see how it will try to grab you again. It's just like the way the mind works. If you're seeing the mind, it can't grab you in the same way. You're aware of it. And that awareness is not the mind, it's the no mind wholeness.
Right. Okay, John, it's that time. But
God must,
thank
yes.
you very much for being on the show. I just want to remind the audience, please help support John's work by purchasing the periodical and doing a reading. You can do that by clicking the link that's in the description box of every video I have done with John. That'll take you to his website and you can sign up. So thank you again, John, for everything. And thank you for everyone that was asking questions and
Thank you.
participating. We have some regulars I've noticed on X Spaces, so that's good.
Yeah, I love your questions. It's so much fun. So the more questions, the merrier.
So with that said, John, tell everybody good night and goodbye, and then we'll shut this down.
Good night. I love you all.
Okay, so John, you stay there, and I'll start shutting everything down. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. glasses.